Every day, the bookies remain, and I check every day, because if it changes, I'll tell you on the telly, they believe there will be a change of government. I hope there is a change in government, but I am offering the asterisk here because I don't want anyone waking up like Labor people felt in 2019, because I think there are some similar dynamics which are at play. But even more polling is getting better for the opposition and worse for the government. Now, as we know, the polling that was around yesterday showed that 73 seats was the way that the opposition was starting to head towards, meaning they'd only need 3 to get to a majority. They would be pretty easily able to find when you think about people like Rebecca Sharkey, when you think about people like Bob Katter, both of whom have said whoever has the most number of seats they would get on board, and allegedly Allegra Spender is suggesting that she is willing to work with them. She's one of the only Teals willing to do so. Now, also, what brews to that point is not just what Newspoll popped up today, again showing 51-49 in favour of the coalition, but a majority of Australians believing it's time to give someone else a go after 3 terrible years of this terrible government. 34% of people, which is basically the Labor Party primary vote, believe this government deserves a second term. 53% believe it doesn't. Now, in that 53, we're talking about anyone from a real independent voter to a Teal voter to a Green to One Nation, Libertarian and all in between. Interestingly, once you start to slice and dice this by states, 50% of people in New South Wales say it's time for a change, 54% of people in Victoria and 58% of people in Queensland. All of that, great, 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 good, good, good. Now, of the seats that the Redbridge polling, and this is going to be 20 marginal seats that they're going to have a look at every 2 weeks. It's going to be as close to publicly available information as the tracking poll that both Labor and Liberal run, where they also monitor 20 seats and they basically get a daily report. It's very expensive to do so. So for us to get basically the same information every 2 weeks before the election, and then, as Kos Samaras told us on air last night, every week during the election, it's really fascinating. Now, the reason they say that 73 seats becomes the option is because many existing Labor seats would go to the coalition. These are the seats that they are suggesting is going to change. In Victoria, New South Wales, Western Australia and Tasmania, they also believe that there will be some changes in, again, plenty more there in New South Wales. The rich pickings basically being New South Wales as the top seed, where 50% of people say it's time for somebody else to have a go, and the others coming from Victoria, which is 54% of people saying it's time for a change. But for that to actually take place, there's a couple of campaign tactics that I want to talk about here. Because there is one thing that absolutely overlaps with those seats that the pollsters are telling us are the most likely bricks in the red wall to fall, and what their view was of the referendum back in 2023. Now remember, the public polling when Albo was running around the country in the Yes T-shirt was that the Labor Party was still well and truly out in front of the opposition. They then spent a year and $450 million on a referendum, and they have never recovered from it since. So the seats set to change, Aston, Gilmore, Bullwinkle, Bennelong, Lyons, Tangi, well, what do they all have in common? They all voted no. Aston at 57%, Gilmore at 61%, McEwen at 60%, Lyons in Tasmania at 67%, plus a whole collection of others. As you can see, the lowest number there is what, the mid-50s? The highest number there is at 70%. So seats like Hunter and Patterson, which I openly speculated last night on the air was really at the tippy-toe end of the expectations. Part of the Liberal Party thinking here is that if 70% of people thought the Prime Minister had the wrong idea when it came to the referendum, that he had the wrong priorities because cost of living was the cost of living fire was raging at that point in time, that being reminded of the Prime Minister's priority when you were suffering the beginnings of what became 3 terrible years financially could be something that will move the needle. But for that to happen, will Liberal Party operatives have the courage to use the image of the Prime Minister wearing the shirt, advocating the position that all of those seats strongly voted against? I don't know. Whoever's doing the social media, particularly for Michaelia Cash, they have worked this out, and virtually every time they mention him with that T-shirt in. So will the Liberal Party make the Yes T-shirt what I Don't Hold a Hose was for the Labor Party and Scott Morrison? If so, that is going to be a little bit of the secret sauce here of something that Australians spent a year learning about the Prime Minister being in the wrong spot when they demanded that he would be where they wanted. Instead, remember, in that year, when he spent $450 million and he was advocating what the majority of the country did not want, that's when they took $1,500 off 10 million taxpayers. It's one thing for me to make this statement here as an observer, but of course I'm not a participant. Let's see how those messages start coming through. Let's see how the social media war plays between now and when the election starts. Because right now, the Libs, they are somewhat near the target, but they are not over the top of it if they believe that there is a direct correlation between places that voted no and places that will vote Liberal at this election. Are they tying the Prime Minister to the position all of those places around Australia didn't just vote no, but voted hell no to?